Good. What?
I got food at the dinosaur barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty gas. But what's going on, YouTube? It is Will here, back again once again for another episode of the Gridiron Talk Podcast. You know, I really should have explained why we did not do this last week. For those who don't know, I currently, well, not right now, Monday, Thanksgiving, but I live in Buffalo. So last week there was a lot of snow, and as I'm sure most of you guys know, there was a lot of snow. Like, it was pretty bad. So unfortunately, I was not at my house. I tried to get to my house, and I got stuck my car got stuck. So it just did not work out. I was stuck at my friend's house all weekend. I had my laptop, and it was pretty bad. So I should have reiterated that. Unfortunately, I did not. So I apologize. But
Man
yeah.
said ticket too. Man was breaking protocol.
Oh no, yeah. Oh no. So real quick, this is pretty funny. So I'm driving back and out on the highway, because that's usually how it is for those who don't know. Obviously, like, 'cause when the people in the city or whatever plows, they always get the highway first. So I'm going back, and the highway is fine. So I'm like, okay, it'll be good. And I get back to as I get close to my house, like to the back roads, I guess, or whatever, not the main roads. It gets worse and worse. So I was getting a little worried, and I'm about to turn on my street, and I'm like, oh, okay, I should make this. I see 2 tread marks. I just gotta follow them, right? Kind of like that was my logic. And I do that, and I hit the gas, and I go, my car got stalled. I was like, shit, and I got stuck. And I had to have my roommate dig me out with help. Me and my roommate dig myself out, and we got me out. But yeah, it was pretty scary,
Man's
to
out
say the
here.
least.
Man's out here taking
Yeah,
risks.
no, literally, the stuff I do for YouTube, man, literally almost got my car. So anyway, so the reason why I changed on breaking protocol was because I didn't know what to do. I didn't really want to call a tow truck because I kind of think those are lame. I'm gonna keep it real. So I called 911 just to see what I should do, right? People might think that's retarded. I don't really care. What would you do? I'm not going to call AAA. That's not how I operate. I called 911, and then this person's like the 911 operator's like this. Um, Travel ban, right? I was like, no, I don't really care if there's a travel ban because my car's kind of jacked. So I would appreciate it if you could just help me out here. And she was like, oh, well, it's going to be like 4 hours. So I was like, okay. So you got to take matters in your own hands. So yeah, that's what happened. So that's why me and Shane did not record it last week. I was kind of, I wasn't home. So it sucks, but it's whatever. We're here this week, and I promise, as long as there's no blizzard, snowstorm, bull crap, this won't be interrupted again. It's just like, it's ridiculous. Like, you can't make this up. I'm like, okay, yeah.
No travel ban. Didn't
No,
even know there was a travel ban. Makes
no,
sense.
no, literally, I don't watch the news, So it's like Shane had the family emergency, and we took the week off, and now there's a damn snowstorm. It's like we just can't catch a break. But with that being said, let's just get into it again. I apologize for the misconvenience. So first of all, Shane, how was your Thanksgiving? Was it good?
It was good. I'm very upset. The Lions didn't win. I'm very upset about that because I thought they were. Um, but besides that, everything's been pretty good. So we're chilling. How was yours?
Good. No, my Thanksgiving was good. I know the Giants lost, but Thanksgiving was cool. It's like my
I saw.
favorite holiday.
I saw you made
But
food. You're making food, some like egg omelet for your mom. I saw that. Your
oh no,
mom
yeah, I'm a little chef boy. I'm not gonna lie. I'm probably going into the culinary business. No, no, it's just funny as hell. It's just my mom's. I come home and I can cook, and my family's astonished. It's like, yes, I can make the most simple foods. I can put 2 eggs. I can put 2 eggs on the stove and cook them. Yes, I can do that. Like, it's just funny. But no, I've been doing good. Like I said, I survived this snowstorm. I almost got, I didn't almost die, but I survived this scary snowstorm, and no, life's been good, bro. I can't really complain. So let's continue on to the games for Thanksgiving. I know usually with the Thursday games I go over the numbers and stuff, but I'm not going to bore people with all these numbers from 3 different games. So I'm just going to go over them real quick. Obviously, the Bills beat the Lions 28-25. That was a good game. Cowboys beat the Giants 28-20, and the Vikings beat the Patriots 33-26. Now, Shane, my first thoughts are the games on Thanksgiving. They were all really good for the first time in a while. every single game was close. Every single game was entertaining. So that was a great Thanksgiving for football. You can't really complain,
Yeah, no,
Go ahead.
what was that?
I said, go ahead.
Oh yeah. No, they were entertaining. I probably my favorite one out of three was definitely the Bills Lions, just because like like how great the Bills are doing, and everybody thought it was going to be a blowout and everything. And for the majority of the time, it was in the Bills, or not the Bills, the Lions' favor for a majority of that second half. So, but yeah, they were all good games.
Yeah, so just a couple like tidbits. The Lions have a bright future in a couple years. If they draft correctly, they will become contenders. This is expected by the Lions all off season. Everyone know this. The league was put on notice. The Lions are not a bad team. They're just in the middle of a rebuild. This is what happens with a rebuilding team, but they have a lot of young talent, and they're also getting Jameson Williams back, their first round receiver. So let's see how he plays from Alabama. He was arguably the best receiver in the draft, and he tore his ACL in the national title game. So it'll be fun to see how he gets incorporated in this offense. My first question for the Bills, I'll answer this one. The Bills have not played the same since their bye. Is this a cause of concern for them? I don't think so. I think every team kind of, goes through a little bit of a midseason slump. I think that's normal in football. I wouldn't be too worried if I were the Bills. That's just football. You can't play perfect every single game. My other question, this is for you, Shane. Von Miller was injured during the Bills game. I believe he has a torn meniscus, a slightly torn meniscus. I'll double check that. He has a lateral meniscus tear, so he will most likely be out for the rest of the regular season. So, what are your thoughts on this for the Bills? Do you think is this bad for them for their playoff chances, or do you think they can win without Von Miller? Or?
I think it's definitely going to hurt him on the defensive side of the ball, just because Von Miller, not only is he still an elite player, but he also brings that experience when it comes to like playoff time. And like obviously he'll be out for the rest of the regular season, but for like depending on like how bad his injury is will depend on like because that's a terrible injury, especially and it's really hard to get back to an elite level coming off of that injury like right away, especially like for playoffs, like against like big time matchups. Like you already know Buffalo's gonna more than likely make the playoffs at this point. So they're a dangerous team heading into the playoffs, but now considering they're probably one of their top three defensive players is injured, like for the rest of the season in a situation where they should have to win out to win their division, it's going to be very tough for them defensively to be as dominant as they have been.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like you said, Von Miller brings that experience. He's been in the league a long time, and there is one weakness for the Bills the last couple of years was they never had an elite pass rusher. They have good linebackers, they have good defensive backs, they're good at stopping the run at times, and they were missing that one key piece on defense, which was a pass rusher, which was universally agreed upon. That was the one weakness the Bills had. They get Von Miller. And then they get Greg Rousseau last year, who's been having a great year with Von Miller, but I believe he's also injured too. So the Bills' pass rush is in shambles right now with their two best pass rushers out. So I think with the Bills, it doesn't really matter as long as they make the playoffs and they're healthy by the playoffs. I don't really think they care. If the Bills go 10-7 and they win the Super Bowl, I don't think they care. They just want to make the playoffs. That's all that really matters in the long run.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be
for
interesting.
Sure. So for the Giants and Cowboys game, the Giants they need to get healthy quick if they want to make the playoffs. They have so many starters injured that they kept the game close against the Cowboys. Just to name a few: Wan'Dale Robinson, Adoree Jackson, Evan Neal. Those are three starters right there. Most of the offensive line, besides Andrew Thomas, is injured. Obviously Sterling Shepard's been out for a while now, so the Giants just need to get healthy. Injuries are kind of catching up on them, and yes, that is football, but it is unfortunate. The Giants were 7-2, and now they've lost 2 in a row, and injuries are just piling up on them. So for the Cowboys, Shane, my question for you is, the Dallas Cowboys are great this year. I feel like we say that all the time in the regular season. So do you think this is a serious team that could make a deep playoff run, or do you think that would be like the Cowboys team of the past?
I mean, I don't know what the rest of their schedule is. It really depends how well they do the rest of the year. I think this team is good. I just I think this team is not playoff, regular season great, but playoff questionable. Kind of like how like the Packers, like the Aaron Rodgers and the Packers were like all those years, like they ended the season 12-4, 13-3, 14-2. Get to the NFC Championship game and then just completely like bust in shambles. And
time out real fast. Their next 3 games are very easy. They have the Colts, the Texans, and the Jaguars as their next 3 games. So they have an easy stretch.
What's their record's what, 7-3 now?
Yes. So, I mean, they're at least going to win 10 games because they close out. They're on a bit of a rough streak. They play the Eagles, they play the Titans, and they play the Commanders, who are on the rise. But their next 3 games do look pretty easy for the Cowboys.
Okay, so granted, they should get at least 3 wins. Depending on how the rest of the NFC playoff picture plays out, which I actually want to talk about before we get into our actual games. Or just
I think
they're
guaranteed 4 wins. I think they beat the Eagles in Dallas. I think they win against the Jaguars, the Colts, and the Texans. The Titans is going to be a tough game, especially in Tennessee. And I think people are really underrating the Commanders because they're on the rise too. So that's going to be a tough game too.
I agree.
So they got 2 tough games that I think are not entirely certain to win, but the next 4 are definitely winnable.
This is I'll say this right now, just because of how like the playoffs could like end up. Like for both conferences, just to make the point of it. But depending on who they would face in the playoffs will depend how far they can actually go. Right now they are 5th, because they technically do have the division lead, or not the division lead, but the
wild card lead.
Yeah, the first wild card lead over the Giants. Matter of fact, the Giants are 6th right now. So it really depends on where they stand in the playoffs when the season ends, but it's going to be interesting. Like this is the type of time of the year where like everything, the playoffs are really getting like situated. So it's really hard to tell like how far each team could go into the playoffs. Just because like the Cowboys, they're a really good team, but there's a couple NFC teams that they haven't shown that they could beat. You know what I mean? So. It's going to be interesting.
The Cowboys' biggest weakness, Shane, is going to be what took them out last year, Shane? The San Francisco 49ers. And what do the Niners have, Shane? They have 2 of the best tackles in football. That's what's gonna be the Cowboys' downfall. Because
this I want to make this point real quick. Last year, the Cowboys' defense wasn't as great as it was this year. So if they end up facing the 49ers. Like say the Eagles win the division and then they end up facing the 49ers. It's gonna be very interesting. That game's gonna be very interesting. And another team I think they might struggle against come playoff time would be the Buccaneers. Just based off of like Tom Brady and how well he does against the Cowboys. Like I know that shouldn't be a big factor, but how Buccaneers are come playoff time. So. It's going to be interesting for like the Cowboys and actually every NFC team when playoffs come because it's looking pretty good right now. It's looking to be an exciting year for playoffs.
Now, before I forget, before I continue to go on to the next topic, if you look at the teams the Cowboys beat, now don't get me wrong, I know obviously I did not let the Dallas Cowboys. I do think they are very good. I cannot deny that. But one thing that I'm noticing, all the teams they've beaten, their offensive lines are not very good. The Rams, their line's terrible. They beat the Rams. The Bengals, terrible offensive line. It's better, but it's still pretty bad. The Bears, we've always seen Justin Fields. He's always under pressure. The Commanders, bad. The Vikings, bad. So, it seems like if there's any weakness for the Cowboys, it would be going against a team with a good offensive line.
And you know what? If you look at some of their losses, and this is going to back up your statement, if you look at their losses, they're all against teams that have really good offensive linemen. The Buccaneers,
and particularly tackles. Tristan Wirfs, an All-Pro tackle. The Eagles, obviously, they have Lane Johnson and Jordan Maitalo. The Packers have David Bakhtiari. They have a good tackle. And like I said,
it's edge rush. So if Micah Parsons and even Lawrence,
yep.
Even if he's in the middle, like double teaming him is important. Like I said, Micah Parsons, if they can't apply the pressure, the linebackers and their secondary they have to stay on like don't get me wrong, their coverage is pretty good, but if you don't have pressure on the quarterback, it only takes a matter of time before someone gets open.
Right. So let's get into the last game on Thanksgiving, the Vikings against the Patriots. The Vikings, they needed this win considering they got embarrassed by the Cowboys 40-3. This was a must win. They got it. Justin Jefferson proves week in and week out why he's a top 5 receiver in the NFL. He's just so good at his route running, his run after the catches, the catches he can make. He's just an excellent wide receiver. He's just also very fun to watch. Now going to the Patriots side of the ball, my question for you, Shane, is do you think the Patriots should pass the ball more often considering how Mac Jones had the best game of his career, or do you think it was just a one-trick pony type thing?
I mean, I don't think it was a one-trick pony I think Bill Belichick should stick to what works for him. They're on the bubble right now when it comes to playoffs. So it's going to be very interesting how they play out for the rest of the year. Their division, like I said earlier about the Bills, their division is very, very tight right now. The Bills are 8-3, the Miami 7-3. I believe they're 6-5. The Patriots.
Yeah, the Jets are 7-4,
and the Jets are 7-4. So it could go down only by a couple losses, and the division game's coming up soon as well. So I think they should keep doing what Bill Belichick knows how to win. So he should just do what he does, and I think this team has a good shot of making the playoffs. Honestly.
Yeah, only time will tell. But like you said about Belichick, let me just say that he's an old school coach, so he doesn't like to switch things up. So I don't think they're going to make a more pass heavy scheme, but I think what that game showed is
especially with a second year quarterback, that's a big risk to take. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, and not even a second year quarterback, but a second year quarterback like Mac Jones, who has not really flashed that potential of having these crazy games. So it's good to see that for the Patriots that theoretically if they need to pass the ball a lot, that Mac Jones proved that he can do that. So that's all I want to talk about in the Thanksgiving games. With those 6 teams. I know we kind of talked about them for a while, but we just covered 3 games, so it was kind of a lot. So Shane, I'll let you. I'll pass the mic to you, and you can start going with the games that have not happened yet. The game's coming up this Sunday and Monday.
All right. Our first game, it's going to be the Buccaneers, who are coming off their bye week. They are 5-5 versus the Browns, who are 3-7. Both of these teams have struggled to meet expectations in different type of ways. With Tampa Bay, it's their underachieving offensive production, and then with the Browns, it's their disappointing defensive on the defensive side of the ball. The struggling Bucks offense have kind of stepped it up a little bit lately, and it looks like they have another type of game where they can fix more stuff on offense with Cleveland's pathetic defense. Tom Brady and the Bucks offense are coming off of a bye, so they had time to fix things up. And Tampa Bay's defense is really what's helping them along, and they're on top of their division right now. So they are on their way to the playoffs if they keep playing the way they have. My question for you here, Will, is do you think the Browns with Deshaun Watson, I believe he's coming back next week. He's not playing this game. I think he's eligible to come back next week. The Browns are 3-7. They're more than likely not going to make the playoffs. Do you think they should start tanking for some good picks for the draft in 2023?
I don't know. I mean, it depends what happens with this game. If the Browns pull off an upset, you got a team that's 4-7 that could theoretically, their schedule is pretty easy. They could theoretically win out or lose one more game, be 9-8, make the playoffs. Or they could win out and be 10-7. So I don't know. I think the thing for the Browns is they are, and this was expected especially when Deshaun Watson, maybe not when he had the 6-game suspension, but when the NFL made an 11-game suspension, this was just expected to be a team that will be a next year team. I think the last 6 games with Deshaun Watson, regardless if they're in the playoff picture or not, will just be him getting up to speed at the professional level because, he hasn't played in 2 years. So I think these last 6 games will just be like, okay, let's see what Deshaun Watson can do. When he was playing, he was definitely a top 10, arguably a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. So let's just see what he can do. Give him these 6 games to warm up, heat up, and then next year it's going to be like, okay, let's see what really you can do with a whole 17-game schedule with Nick Chubb, with Amari Cooper, with David Njoku, with Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think that the next year we'll see how really good the Browns are, and this year is like a sneak peek.
No, I agree. And if they do end up getting a good pick in the draft, they definitely should probably go with
But they
a
don't
good
have
off.
a first-round pick. They gave it to the Texans for Deshaun Watson. They don't have a first-round pick.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I completely forgot about that. Well, either way, they should try to go defensive with their picks on draft night. They're 3-7. They're 13th in the bubble. I have the playoff picture up right now, so it's definitely going to be interesting. And then my next question is: is this coming off the bye week? Do you think the Buccaneers will start getting red hot? It's that time of the year where when Tom Brady first came to Tampa and they were struggling real bad in the beginning of the season, where they started to kick it up a notch and they were just unbeatable from the second half of the season all the way up to when they won the Super Bowl. Do you see the Buccaneers getting on that hot streak again and becoming a very dangerous team?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I got the schedule pulled up. I don't think they can beat the Niners or the Bengals. But besides those 2 games, their schedule is pretty easy. So I don't want to say they'll be white hot, but I think the Buccaneers definitely should finish with exactly 10 wins. The Browns, that should be a win. The Cardinals, the Falcons, the Panthers, those are all should be wins. And the Saints. So I don't think red hot is the right word, but their schedule definitely is easy after their bye. That is a fact. So I think that, if they win the games they should win and lose the games they should lose, they'll be fine. And they're also very thankful that their division sucks. Any other division, you're 5-5, you're in trouble. If they were in the NFC East, they'd be in trouble. The AFC East, they'd be in trouble. But they're just very thankful that their division sucks. So again, I don't think they'll be white hot, but I definitely do think they'll make the playoffs because, like I said, their division sucks.
They're also getting a lot of their good key players back as well. So that bye week definitely did help them with a lot of their players being injured. So it's going to be interesting to see what my boys can do starting this week. But we'll see. Time will tell.
You got one this game, Shane, between the Bucs and the Browns.
I have the Bucs winning. I think they're gonna offensively. I think they're gonna pound down on the Browns. I think it's gonna be 31-10. I just don't see the defense stopping the offense coming off of the bye week. So yeah, 31-10 Bucs. How about you, Will?
I'm gonna say 24-17 Bucs. I think it'll be a little bit closer, but yeah, if Tom Brady is clicking with Godwin and Evans, this is scary because the Browns secondary sucks. So I mean, it'll be fun to see Tom Brady slinging it like he's 40.
The breakout running back White, he's playing really good too. Leonard Fournette will not be playing this game, I do not believe, and so he's got another weapon in White who's been playing pretty well. I think he had over 100 yards this last game, so it's going to be interesting to see how well this offense plays against the Browns defense.
So let's go on to my first game. We got the Chicago Bears, who are 3-8, versus the New York Jets, who are 6-4. I was wrong; they're not 7-4; they're 6-4. But yeah, the Bears and the Jets. The Bears have been a bit of a slump lately, but Justin Fields has been a bright spot for this team. He has proven that he is the Bears franchise quarterback. Going into the season, you either loved him or you hated him. And he had the slow start, and it was like, oh, okay, the Bears are looking bad. And, the Bears aren't winning games, but, the potential there is there. The potential is there. And they're in a similar boat like the Lions. Like, if they draft correctly in the next couple of years, I could see the Bears definitely being a powerhouse in the NFC. One thing that I said with you, Shane, is I'm very happy that the Bears are finally they're building an offense first, which in our lifetimes, at least, that's never been done. The Bears have always had the defense, and now they're kind of flipping the script. So I think that they're kind of realizing that, if you want to win in the modern day NFL, you need to have a good offense. Good defenses only take you so far. So the Bears' future does look bright. On the other hand, the Jets have benched Zach Wilson, who was obviously the number 2 pick last year, after his poor play and attitude. The Zach Wilson, the Jets defense is insane. I know they played the Patriots and their offense isn't the greatest, but their defense is nuts. You got Quinn Williams, who's been having a career year. Sauce Gardner, me and you have talked about him all year long. You got Quan Alexander, C.J. Mosley. They just got a great team. So the Jets are looking good. And Zach Wilson only orchestrated 3 points, Shane, and that's unacceptable. 3 points on offense is unacceptable. There's no defending that. And Zach Wilson was like, "Yeah, I think I didn't let the defense down." So, how could you defend his attitude? What are your thoughts on that, Shane?
I mean, he's got the weapons that he has. You can't really put this on the play calling, really, because it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, well, you just got to execute. As far as comments, I don't know what I don't know what he was thinking. Like you said, this defense is insane right now.
And they're young. They're really young too.
Exactly. That's my point. So, they're a very young defense that can be very successful with a good offense, and they can have a good offense. They gotta execute, and I'm actually surprised they didn't choose to have Flacco start.
That was my question for you. I was like, do you think the Jets are making a mistake starting Joe Flacco over Mike White?
I think it is. I think this offense is worse under Mike White out of all 3 quarterbacks. He's not that great. Joe Flacco at least has experience. He's around younger talent. I think Flacco's like 35. Super Bowl champion. He knows how to win. He can get this team to the playoffs at this point in the season. So I do think this is I think it's a smart decision to bench Zach Wilson, but a bad decision not to have Joe Flacco as a starting quarterback.
No, yeah, I agree too. I know Mike White is the young talent. That's why. And, Joe Flacco was always an average quarterback, kind of like, Kirk Cousins when he played for the Ravens. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't very good, but he wasn't elite, but he wasn't bad.
I think he was a greater version of Kirk Cousins. That's how I would describe.
No, pretty much. You're hitting the nail on the head right there. Am I saying Joe Flacco is still good? He's 37 right now. Obviously not, but I mean, personally, I think the only thing that Mike White has over Joe Flacco is mobility, just because Mike White is like in his early 20s. I don't know exactly how old Mike White is. He's 27. I just looked it up. So, he's 27. Joe Flacco is 37, and obviously Mike White has the mobility. So, I mean, besides that, I can't really think of any other way to start why you would start him over Joe Flacco. I don't really understand it. And also, considering when Zach Wilson was injured the first couple games, Joe Flacco was the starter. So, I mean, it is pretty confusing. My friend's a Jets fan. He wanted Joe Flacco to start, so he doesn't really understand why they're starting Mike White. So, I guess time will tell if Mike White sucks, then they're gonna have to they're going to have to play Joe Flacco. So, and also real quick before I continue, Joe Flacco's stats were not that terrible with the Jets. He had 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, just under 1,000 yards in 3 games. So, I mean, they're not terrible stats. You can't complain.
No, I agree. But what was I going to say? I completely lost my train of thought. That sucks. Yeah,
Flacco,
I don't.
Mike White.
Something about Joe Flacco.
Well, I'll continue.
Yeah. I don't know what it was. We'll just continue.
Yeah, I'll continue. So, obviously, back to the Bears. Their offense is very polarizing. They have the best rushing offense in the league, but the worst passing offense. And it's pretty disappointing to see Chase Claypool not getting incorporated yet. I know me and you talked about how excited we were to have how excited it was for Chase Claypool to be in Chicago with how gifted he is with his body and but his length and his height and his weight and his size, obviously. And the fact that he really hasn't had his big breakout game with the Bears is unfortunate, but they have him for all of next year as well. So it might take time. And my last thing, Shane, my other question for you is: do you think the Bears should play Justin Fields? He has a shoulder injury, but Justin Fields is insisting that he wants to play. Do you think they should sit him, or do you think it's the right idea to have him play with his shoulder?
I think they should adjust their offense to his injury. That may sound like pretty like not confusing, but like don't like don't
Run
make
it as
him.
much.
Yeah. Don't make it as like if he's gonna run, make sure he has protection and make sure he's able to like to give
Slide
up.
or go out of bounds. Yep.
So just adjust the offense a little bit. Obviously, that's going to be tough against this Jets defense because, like we just talked about, they are a very good defense. So I think he should still play. He is the one good aspect of this offense for the Bears at the moment. So I think they'll be fine though.
Who do you got win this game, Shane, between the Bears and the Jets?
I'm honestly gonna pick the Jets, but I think it's gonna be a close game. I think it's gonna be 21-20 Jets.
I agree. I think it's going to be a close game, too. Very similar score, Shane. 21-13 Jets. It'll be interesting to see how the Jets play with Mike White and to see where their future is a quarterback. And I'm going to call it right now. Future Jets quarterback, Shane, Jimmy Garoppolo. Calling it right now.
Oh, interesting.
Let me just say, the head coach of the Jets was the defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. And the Jets run a very similar offense to Kyle Shanahan, a very zone-heavy run, like a zone run scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
yeah,
and Jimmy G, the Jets look like they're a quarterback, a quarterback. I don't want to say a quarterback away, but they need a quarterback for at least a couple years. So sign Jimmy G to a 2-year contract, and then Zach Wilson's the backup.
Yeah, listen, man. That you know what. That may work. But
And would they be a super team? No, they would not be a super team.
No. It all depends. It all depends on how 49ers do this year, man. You never know. You never know, man. You never know. But on to our next game. The nope, my bad. I was on the wrong one. The Bengals versus the Titans. Now the Bengals are 6-4. The Titans are 7-3. The Titans have ever since starting 0-2. They have won 7 of their last 8 games after obviously dropping the first 2. We always talk about how the Titans are a one-dimensional type of team, like Derrick Henry. That's like when you think of Titans, you think of Derrick Henry. But their defense is probably the most underrated in the league. They're 8th in points allowed throughout the season. I think it's at 18.5, I believe. I'll have to double check that. But after a big victory against the Steelers, the Bengals are not. After a big victory over the Steelers for the Bengals, they're not going to have Nixon or Chase, I believe, in this game. I believe they're both expected to not play against a very good defense. So my question for you here, Will, is will the Bengals struggle to put up points against the Titans defense?
I don't know. I mean, with all the talent they have, you want to say it's not, but they won't. But as you said, the Titans have a very underrated defense, and the big thing is, Shane, is they don't have a lot of players on their defense that are household names. Not even to I don't want to say to casual fans like an insult, but everyone knows Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, and that's just 2 for an example, or Von Miller, everyone, those are household defensive names. On the Titans, most fans don't know any defensive players on the Titans. They don't really have any stars. They obviously, for people who watch the Titans, they got Kevin Byard, their safety. They got Jeffrey Simmons on the defensive line, D'Amico Autry, just to name a few. But my point is like you said, their defense is very underrated because it doesn't seem like they have the stars, but they do. They're just very criminally underrated players. So to adjust to this defense will be interesting to see because the Titans have one of the best run-stopping defenses in the league. And especially without Joe Mixon, it might be tough for the Bengals to run on them.
No, I agree. They still have T. Higgins, so they still have the wide receiver threat, and obviously Joe Burrow is an elite quarterback, or a very good quarterback, I should say. But you are right. It will be interesting. Who do you have winning this game?
This will be a close game, I think. This is a very underrated game, a very good game. The spread is 1.5, so even Vegas is predicting this game to be close. If the Bengals were fully healthy, I'd say the Bengals take this easily. With Joe Mixon, with with Jamar Chase. I think it's easily, but with the injuries, it'll be interesting. I still think the Bengals take this game 27-24, but it will be a good game. And if the Titans win, I think that if the Titans win, they solidify themselves as the most underrated team in the AFC. What about you, Shane?
I agree with that. I'm going to pick the Titans on this one. I just think I just have a feeling they're going to get very hot. And then when playoffs come around, they're going to be a very good team. I have them winning in a pretty close game as well. I have them winning 26-24. Titans over the Bengals.
Let's get into our next game. Which, if you told me, Shane, these teams were going to be terrible in 2000, if you go back in time to me in 2016, 2015, saying in a couple of years these teams are going to suck, I wouldn't believe you. And you can probably guess what game I'm talking about. We're talking about the Broncos and the Panthers. The Broncos are 3-7. The Panthers are 3-8. Both of these teams have just not been the same since Super Bowl 50. The Broncos have struggled a lot with Russell Wilson, and the fact that they were 5-5 through 10 games last year with Teddy Bridgewater shows you how much they have declined in one off season. Like I said, Super Bowl 50, both of these teams won their respective conferences. The Broncos won Super Bowl 50, and that is their last playoff game was Super Bowl 50. Fun fact. But the Broncos and both of these teams have just been very mediocre since then. The Broncos have always just been quote unquote a quarterback away since then, and the Panthers have just been stuck in averageness. They made the playoffs one time, they get bounced, they make it again, then they get bounced, and they just sucked. So, both of these teams have just been in this decline since they made the Super Bowl. With Chase Edmonds hurt for the Broncos, who they traded for at the trade deadline, and Melvin Gordon getting waived, expect Latavius Murray to shine in an offense that needs to stop running the ball. Latavius Murray, Shane, he's from around our hometown, so it's good to see him getting these opportunities. You've always liked Latavius Murray, right?
What was that? I'm sorry.
I said you've always liked Latavius Murray, right? Because he's around our hometown.
Yeah. My high school coach actually coached him for state, like when he was in high school.
Yeah, Latavius Murray
and won a state title with him. So
yeah,
I haven't worked out with him, but he was in the room as I was working out. I didn't go up to him just because I didn't have the time or I didn't have the credibility at the time to just go up to Latavius Murray. So,
that's funny. So
the man's a lot bigger in person. I don't think people realize it. He's actually a pretty big dude for a running back. But no, yeah, it's great to see him get these opportunities.
No, and another thing is like he can't stand a team. I don't really know why. I mean, he's not bad. Don't get me wrong, but like it always seems like he's on a new team every year. Like he was on the Saints and the Ravens and the Saints again, the Vikings, the Raiders, now the Broncos. Like, he's like a journeyman, kind of like a journeyman running back. But like every time he'll be a free agent next year, Shane, and one team's running back's gonna get injured, and then who they pick up? Latavius Murray. It's like he's like the go-to.
I'm telling you, man, Bucks may have to pick him up. Leonard Fournette's getting older. His injuries are starting to catch up to him. We got a new type. We got a young running back, but he's not really experienced at all. So who knows, man? Might sign him to a 1-year deal or something. Who knows? Like you said.
So for the Panthers, they're obviously very disappointing, and that all comes up to Baker Mayfield. He won't be starting this game because of his poor play. Sam Darnold will be starting. Do you like this, or do you think they should keep playing Baker Mayfield?
Honestly, I don't like Baker. I've never liked Baker. I always thought he was overrated. Even in college, I thought he was overrated. He's a systems quarterback. If he's not in the right systems, he's not a good quarterback. I like the riskiness of putting in Sam Darnold. I just don't know if it's going to work out. I just don't see Sam Darnold doing what he needs to do in order to get this team and this offense going for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and I really wish. I know the quarterback class this year was very weak, but I really wish that Matt Corral was healthy because I really would love to see how he would be playing from Ole Miss, the rookie.
Mm-hmm.
But we're gonna have to wait a year, assuming they don't draft a quarterback in the first round, which I'll get into. But if Matt Corral was healthy, I feel like this would be a time of the day where you start him. Just say, screw it. Let's see if this kid's our franchise guy because, they're on their third quarterback in 3 weeks. They go from Baker Mayfield to P.J. Walker to, Baker Mayfield, P.J. Walker. P.J. Walker gets hurt back to Baker Mayfield, back, and then Sam Darnold. It's like, dude, it's just kind of sad. Lastly, Shane, my question for you, and I know both. We haven't really discussed a lot about the game itself because both of these teams are not in playoff contention. Both of these teams are clearly looking for the future. And going on with the future, my question for you, Shane, is where does the future lie for both of these teams? Russell Wilson's contract. He is the long-term guy for the Broncos, whether they like it or not. That sucks for them because he's been playing pretty bad. And the Panthers, they need to draft a quarterback in the first round, whether that be C.J. Stroud for Ohio State or Bryce Young from Alabama. What are your thoughts on each team's future? Just go ahead.
I think the Broncos have a better future. I think they just need to mix better. You know what I mean? As for the Panthers, I generally think I don't think they're a quarterback away. I generally don't think this team's very good. I think it will still be another couple years before this team really gets going. So honestly, I think it's their rebuild time, and we always feel like the Panthers are in a rebuild. But ever since that Super Bowl, ever since Cam left, it's just they obviously traded away Christian McCaffrey.
Robbie
I
Anderson.
Yeah,
him too.
Him as well. So this team is definitely looking for the future. So I think they're going to be busy in the offseason with the draft, with free agents, and it's going to be interesting to see how much involvement they have with free agency in the draft. It's going to be very exciting.
One thing that I want to point out before we get into our picks is, they consider 2 guys, and I'm sure you know who they are, for their future. They consider DJ Moore, wide receiver, and Brian Burns, a defensive end. Now, Brian Burns is good. Don't get me wrong, Shane. But at the trade deadline, the Rams offered the Panthers two first-round picks for Brian Burns, and they said no. So the Panthers are obviously looking to build around him and DJ Moore. So that is interesting to see because if I was the Panthers, I'm taking that in a heartbeat. 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns. I know he's good, but still, like you said, Shane, they're in the middle of a rebuild. Look for the future, and it was just interesting to see that. But Shane, who do you think is going to win this game between the Broncos and the Panthers?
I have the Broncos win this game in a low-scoring type of affair. I think it's going to be 17-13 Broncos.
I got a very similar score. One thing that's good about the Broncos is their defense is very good. So I think the Broncos will win this game 17-10. Expect this team to win games like this the rest of the year. Very ugly, very low-scoring game because that's what the Broncos are, a very ugly team.
No, I agree. Moving on to our next game. This one is going to be electrifying on one end, then very boring on the other. We got the Texans, who are 1-8-1, worst team in the NFL, against the Dolphins, who are 7-3. Dolphins' offensive line has been very successful after struggling earlier in the season. They've allowed 2 sacks in the past 3 games on Tua Tagovailoa, and they're also coming off their best rushing performance of the year against Cleveland. Considering, and this is why I mentioned earlier, I brought up the playoff picture. This not only for this game, but a couple other games as well. The Dolphins are 7-3. The Bills are 8-3. The Jets are 6-4, and the Patriots are 6-5. Now, all those teams are in the top 8 seeds. The Patriots are 8th on the bubble. The Jets are 7th in the wild card, and the Dolphins are 5th in the wild card. Then obviously the Bills are leading their division. Their schedule, there's a lot of division play the last couple weeks, the last 7 weeks of the season, 6 or 7, 8 weeks of the season. Does for Miami to win the division? This is my question for you. Do you think, considering the tight race for the division and for playoff picture, do you think Miami needs to win out to win their division?
So obviously The Dolphins do play the Bills again. They play the Niners again. They play the Chargers again. Those are three tough games. That's a tough. After this week, the Dolphins have a tough 3-game stretch. So, do I think they need to win out?
Consider,
They
consider, considering like how close the division is right now, and how like good, like obviously at the end of the year, I believe it's going to come down to Buffalo and Miami, and I believe they face off in week 17, 16.
Yep.
I'm not 100% sure which week it is, but it's later in the year. So I think I generally believe that I think they need to win out to win the division, just because of the Bills' schedule as well. Like I don't think the Bills have a tough schedule the rest of the year. I don't know what their schedule is, but I'm pretty sure they should probably only lose one more game, and that could be against Miami.
Right. The Dolphins, I would say they have to, but as a Dolphins fan, who really cares about winning the division? Is it cool? Obviously. Is it good? Obviously. But, with this Dolphins team, the last 2 years they've had winning records and not made the playoffs. In 2020, the COVID year, they went 10-6. They didn't make the playoffs. Last year, they started like 1-8 or 1-7, and they rebounded and finished 9-8. And, this year, the Dolphins, in the offseason, they fired their head coach, which a lot of people did not like. They thought that was very stupid. And they hire Mike McDaniel, and his main thing was that he's a Shanahan coach that's very offensive. And he's made this team more offensive. They're the 7th-ranked offense in points scored, and their defense is still pretty solid, too. 2nd-best passing offense in football. So the Dolphins just look great on paper. And also considering that they didn't really have any draft picks this year because they traded them for Tyreek Hill. They only had 4. So my point being here is that the Dolphins look great, and if they don't win the division, their fans should not be upset. Would you agree?
No, I agree. I 100% agree on that one.
Because they're improving, and Tua, after being the most hated on quarterback the last year at least, the most hated for a bunch of crazy things. Some people hate him because he was left-handed, which is just really crazy to me. Oh yeah, he's left-handed, so he sucks. Like that doesn't even make sense. But all right. But, he's gotten very scrutinized, and Tyreek Hill and, Jalen Waddle have really opened up this offense for him. And then now Raheem Mostert, too. I think the Dolphins need a running game, and if they establish that, which they seem to be doing that with Jeff Wilson Jr., Shane, this team is scary. Like, I think this team might make the AFC title game, low-key.
They could, scary. Man. They could. They obviously they showed they can beat the Bills. So, like we said, anything can happen on any given Sunday. So who knows? Maybe they can go. Maybe they can finish the season 14-3, or 13-3, whatever it is. Who knows? They could end up playing in the AFC title or AFC championship game. So it's going to be very interesting. Moving on to the Texans, they're absolutely terrible. They'll probably get the first pick of the draft this year.
No, they do have Kyle Allen at quarterback. I'm not saying that's anything too crazy.
I was just about to mention that they benched quarterback Davis Mills to start Kyle Allen. So, what do you think? What do you think? Why do you think they did that? Do you think they still got hope they can, maybe win some games with Kyle Allen, or was this just one of those things to be like, okay, let's see what Kyle can do?
Kyle Allen, for those who don't know, he used to play for the football team at the time. He played for them, and he got a start with the Panthers in Carolina the same year Cam Newton got hurt, and he played for the Panthers too. And Kyle Allen, was he great? No, but he was very solid. I will always say that he was solid. He wasn't very good, but he wasn't very bad either. With the Panthers, he was their starter for most of the year. And as a first-year quarterback thrown to a very bad spot, he threw 17 touchdowns. He did have 16 interceptions too, which is a lot. But, that's not bad, 17 touchdowns. And with the football team /Redskins /whatever, during the COVID year, he was there. Because, Fitzpatrick. Oh, wait, I don't even know. Oh, Alex Smith or whatever. He was their starting quarterback at the start of the year. And then, that's when Heineke came in and Alex Smith or whatever. And through 4 games with Washington, his passing rating was 99, and he had a 4-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. Like that's not bad. Would you agree?
No, that's really good, especially for someone that's not like an elite quarterback.
No, right. 4-to-1, 99 rating. His career passing rating is 85. So, like I said, like the big reason I think they're starting him is that they've accepted that Davis Mills is not their franchise quarterback. They accept that their franchise guy is still in college right now. Probably going to draft C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young or whoever they want to draft. So that's probably where they're looking for. But Kyle Allen's just kind of like, okay, well, Davis Mills sucks. Let's see what Kyle Allen can do to see if maybe he can be a future backup. I don't know.
No, it's definitely
That's my opinion. But who do you think's gonna win this game?
You already know. I think Miami's gonna. I think they're gonna run over the Texans. I'm 41-10. I'm being pretty bold. 41-10. Miami.
I'm picking Texans money line. No, I'm playing. I'm not. The Texans aren't winning this game. I got the Dolphins winning. I'll say the Dolphins win 34-10. The Dolphins are just gonna blow them out of the water. It's funny because it's just going to be a rout. Expect Tyreek Hill to just, oh my god! If you have Tyreek Hill in fantasy and you're playing against him, I'm sorry, bro. You're probably not going to win this week. Any Dolphins player, I'm sorry. If you're playing a Dolphins player in fantasy, just forfeit.
Just forfeit at this point.
Next game we got here, two pretty disappointing teams. I would have to say is the LA Chargers, who are 5-5. Versus the Arizona Cardinals, who are 4-7. The Chargers are really injured, and that might affect their playoff push this year. Obviously we've said this before, and it's just a common saying: injuries are a part of football, but the good teams persevere and they stay resilient through the injuries. Would you agree?
Oh no, I 100% agree with that.
Right. So for the Cardinals, they were 4-5, and then Kyler Murray, or they were 4-3 or whatever. They missed. My point is that they missed Kyler Murray the last two games. He is coming back. He had a hamstring injury, so he is back. His return is crucial if the Cardinals want to stay relevant in the NFC playoff hunt. Justin Herbert played the best game of the season last week. Keenan Allen was back, and Mike Williams was back, even though I think he's going to be out again. He hurt himself during last game. And Joshua Palmer had a great game as well. So Justin Herbert, he gets some weapons back. He plays great. So that's a good sign for Justin Herbert that he got out of his mediocre slump. He wasn't bad, but he was just kind of meh. My first question for you, Shane, is: do you think that Brandon Staley, head coach of the Chargers, is on the hot seat if the Chargers do not make the playoffs?
I think he is. I really do think he is. The hype around Justin Herbert, how great he is. He is a very good quarterback. He might be a little bit overrated. He might need a little bit more help on defense because especially for their rushing against the rush, their defense is not very good against the rush. We've seen this over the last couple of years. It's been their biggest weakness. And I generally believe that the play calling is a little bit questionable lately. And, who knows, maybe a couple different play calls and maybe they're not 5-5. Maybe, they're 6-3. Maybe they could have beaten Kansas City because that game was close. They hung in there and they were leading for, I believe, a good amount of time. So I do think he's in the hot seat.
I agree. I think he was on the hot seat since last year with the whole Raiders game. In overtime, they could have went for the tie, and the Raiders were playing. They literally were playing for a tie, and then the Chargers called a timeout, and then the Raiders got annoyed and they kicked the field goal. So, I think that put him on the hot seat as well. And his play calling is just very stupid. I know I'm not an NFL coach, so I guess realistically, I have no qualification to be saying that. But if it's 4th and 3, and you're at the 5-yard line, I'm taking the field goal, and he's like this: go for it. Like, doing that all the time is not good play calling. I don't care if it works 9 times out of 10. Take your points. It's just like stupid. Like, you just make stupid play calls to be like quirky, to be interesting. No, but would you agree? Like, going for it on 4th down every time when you have a field goal is not smart.
Oh no, I definitely agree, especially in like big time situations, like especially against teams that like you need to be like in division teams, like the fucking Chiefs. Excuse my language, but the Chiefs. Like, don't, like, you know what I mean? So, like,
No, yeah,
I just,
I'm not saying he does that all the time, but that's just like one thing he does. He seems to
it's,
go for it on fourth a lot.
it's definitely questionable. A little
No,
bit
right,
too.
yeah. And going back to what you said, the Chargers record could be better. 3 of their 5 losses have come by 1 possession, and that was a common issue for them last year. They lost a lot of 1 possession games. They just can't close out games. Whether that be coaching or, like you said, not stopping the run, or a little bit of both. It's just crazy. So flipping the script back to the Cardinals, Shane. My last question for you is, why haven't the Cardinals fired head coach Cliff Kingsbury? He seems to lose more games than them than not, and the Cardinals have only had 1 winning season with him as a head coach, which was last year.
I mean, I think they're gonna wait to the end of the season to do it. I don't think they want to be one of those teams to fire a coach in the middle of the season and have the offense change a little bit depending on who they would have as intermediate head coach. So I honestly think he will get fired, but I think it will be after the season's over because this team's not going to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I think that's the main reason why.
Right. I agree. I don't think he's a good coach, and I think it's all starting in college too. He was the head coach of Texas Tech, and he didn't have a winning record with Patrick Mahomes as quarterbacks. Or so. I mean, that's all you really need to know. Like, this dude can't win with Patrick Mahomes. So, what else can you ask from him? How was he? He shouldn't have been a head coach in the first place. They shouldn't have hired him. So, Shane, who do you think's going to win this game between 2 teams that, like I said, have been underperforming all year?
I think the Chargers are going to win. I think it's going to be a 27-23 game. I think it'll be close, but I think the Chargers will win. Will actually win this close game because I don't think the Cardinals can really. I generally don't believe the Cardinals are going to win that many more games this year.
I think the Chargers are going to win too. I think they're going to win 23-20. And like you said, they have been losing 1 possession games, but I think this is one they need to win. And if they don't win this game, then a lot of questions will be asked about the Chargers to see how good they really are. Because some people had them win the Super Bowl.
They're AFC favorites. They were favored to go to Super Bowl, and even some were favored to have them win, like you said, make the Super Bowl and all that. But obviously, that's not the case. So, moving on to our next game, 2 I wouldn't say surprising teams, but 2 teams. Well, definitely one team that's very hot right now, and one team that could be on the rise over the next couple of years. The Falcons, who are 5-6, versus the Commanders, who are 6-5. The Commanders are 4-1 since Heineke took over, and it looks like he will stay as QB1. As I believe they made him the starter for this game, even though Carson Wentz is now healthy. So it's going to be interesting to see how Tyler Heineke can perform the rest of the year. Like I said, they've been 4-1 since he took over. He reminds me of Jimmy Garoppolo. Everybody really likes him. Everybody loves his story. So it's good to see him get more chances and opportunities with the Commanders. My question for you here, Will, for Atlanta, obviously they're in, like we said earlier, they're in a very bad division with the Bucs, who are 5-5. The Panthers, the Saints, all that. The Falcons are 5-6. They are ninth they're on the bubble in 9th place. Do you think they have a shot at making the playoffs as a wild card team?
I mean, obviously, yeah. I mean, statistically, there is a chance. Do I think they will make the playoffs? I don't think so. But the good thing here about the Panthers, the Falcons, is the Falcons were projected to be a very bad team in football this year, and they aren't. They're not good, but they're like, I would say, slightly below average. I think they're in the range of they're in if you rank all teams from 1 to 32, they're in the 20 to 19 range. Slightly below average. And I think that's really
a respectable team.
Oh yeah, definitely not terrible, but not obviously the Chiefs, obviously. So I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but it's good to see the Falcons having 5 wins with almost they won 7 games last year with a much better roster. So it's good to see them almost being close to that win total with a lot worse roster. So it's interesting to see how they'll finish. I think the season for them has been a W because they were projected to be like a bottom 3 team in the NFL, and they aren't. So kind of like the Seahawks, but worse. Seahawks are the same way. So I don't
especially
think they'll make the
especially
playoffs, but the future looks bright.
especially with the questions at the quarterback position with Marcus Mariota. Like, should he really be playing for this team and all
We
that?
talked
And
about that.
and
Ritter.
it's definitely interesting how the season has gone, and it's only pretty impressive. Like you said, they were predicted to be one of the worst teams of the season this year. Who do you have winning this game, Will?
I got the Commanders win this game. I got them winning 21-20. I think it'll be a very close game. I think the Commanders are just going to even slowly get better, especially with Chase Young coming back soon. I know he's not going to be back for this game, but he is coming back soon. So I got the Commanders winning. What about you, Shane?
I agree. I think it's going to be 24-17 Commanders.
Shane, how many more games you got?
I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have three Sundays, and then I have the Monday night game.
All right, so I have 2 left. So you do 2 in a row.
All right. So our next game is going to be the Ravens, who are 7-3, versus the Jaguars, who are 3-7. Quarterback Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have won 4 in a row, and 2 of them have been on the road. The Baltimore's defense has been the main stage over the streak of their wins, allowing 4.5 points a game. Their sacks are up. They're better on third downs, defensively and offensively, and they suddenly look as one of the top teams in the AFC. As they kind of struggled in the beginning of the season. My question for you here, Will, and then we'll start talking about the Jaguars, is how big of a threat do you think the Ravens will be come playoff time?
I mean, I can't really say that because I don't really know who they're playing. It's all very matchup dependent. I think you said that earlier. What team did you say that with? Was it the Dolphins? The
No, the
Cowboys.
Cowboys.
Cowboys. You said that.
It goes with the Dolphins too, honestly.
But
Just
yeah, I mean, I can't. I mean, if theoretically, if the Chargers make the playoffs and the Ravens play them in the first round, that's a very favorable matchup because the Chargers have a terrible run defense. But if they play a team like the Titans who have a very good run defense, then it might be a little bit dicey. So I can't really answer that until either the Ravens start to open up their passing offense more, or because last week they won 13-3, very ugly win for the Ravens. They did not look good at all. So I can't really comment on how good they look until either they start playing better offensively with the pass, or we know their playoff opponent. Kind of hard to judge that right now.
Theoretically, I believe they would face, with how the playoff pictures looks, I believe they would face off against the Bengals come playoff time in that first round.
That's a tough matchup. That's a tough matchup.
So
that could go either way easily.
As for the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, he's kind of had another inconsistent type of year, to say the least. Or not to say the least, but for the most part. Do you think, for the Jaguars, do you think they should be very involved in free agents this year to try to improve their team? Because they started off pretty well. They started off 2-1. Obviously, that's only 3 games, but since then they've only mustered out 1 win, I believe, in the past 7 games. So, do you think they should be very involved in free agents and be very instinctive come for the draft? Because this team is honestly, they're young, they're very young, and they do have talent, and they could end up being a very good team within the next 3 or 4 years, depending how they do during free agency. So, do you think they should be very involved when obviously the offseason comes around with getting new players?
I think they should be, not too crazy because you want to don't want to, go into a cap hell, but a little bit. And I think they really planned for next year. I think I said this last week when they traded for Calvin Ridley, knowing he would be suspended the rest of the season. So I really feel like I said, that next year we'll really see how good the Jaguars are because, you're going to give Trevor Lawrence a borderline elite wide receiver. And we're going to see how how much potential he really has and to see how good this team will really be, because that's a really solid receiving core with him and Christian Kirk. That's a good duo. I think people aren't really valuing that. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, I definitely agree. Who do you have winning this game here, Will?
I think the Ravens win 23-17. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. I like the main reason why, because the Ravens just look sloppy, and that's just how, that's why. If the Ravens looked dominant last week, I think it'd be a lot different, but that did not happen. So, yeah, 23-17 Baltimore. What about you, Shane?
I'm thinking pretty close score, 27-13 Ravens. All right, on to our next game. It's going to be the Raiders, who are 3-7, versus the Seahawks, who are 6-4. And we called it all year long. The Raiders have underperformed on every single level, from offense to defense to special teams. As for the Seahawks, they've overperformed. This was not the team we thought. We thought 3 wins max. Geno Smith's their quarterback, and oh my God, they've played way above expectations. They're 6-4. They're in the playoff hunt. They're playing honestly really, really good. But they both these teams have insane amount of pressure. The Raiders are kind of in a must-win out situation if they have hopes of making the playoffs. And then obviously the Seahawks are in the chase with the 49ers for a division title. Which team do you think have the most likelihood of making the playoffs? Well,
I gotta go with the less hot take, I guess the easy answer, and say the Seahawks, because their record's just a lot better. You could argue that the Raiders have a better roster, but obviously the Raiders are in a very tough spot.
I definitely agree. Like, not to cut you off, I definitely agree. The Raiders definitely have a way better talent wise, way better roster than the Seahawks. They went big this past offseason, getting Devontae Adams, a couple other signees, I believe, as well. And everybody thought, okay, this team's definitely a playoff caliber team, and they're sitting here week 11, week 11, 3-7. So
right.
they definitely underperformed so far this year, and it's kind of disappointing because a lot of Raiders fans are like old school type of fans, so it kind of sucks that they haven't come up to expectations. As for the Seahawks, like I said, no one thought they would be in this situation. They probably thought they were going to be the team that's 3-7 at this point in the season, and they've just been playing really well, especially with Geno Smith. It's a great story. We've talked about it multiple times this year on the podcast. But who do you think is going to win this game between the Raiders and the Seahawks? Will?
I got the Seahawks winning. I always pick the Raiders and like these upsets. Like, I just can't keep on picking them because they're just not very good. I say, I'll pick the Raiders and they lose. So I'm sick of picking this team. I'm very lucky I don't bet on these games because I'd be really upset if I kept on betting on this team.
Listen, Will. I'm kind of upset we don't keep score at who on the record of the predictions like we did last year. Because you would not have a very good record at all. At all. You'd have a very bad record.
Yeah, because I kept on picking the Raiders. I kept on losing. And then the one time I don't pick the Raiders, they win. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I'm gonna pick the Seahawks. I'll say they win 28-24. Should be a good game, I hope. I'm not really too sure because the Raiders could play good. They could suck. So I don't really know because this is how the Raiders are. They're just very polarizing. I've never seen a team with this much talent be so bad. It's just really astonishing.
It's crazy. It's crazy to see. But no, I agree. I have the Seahawks winning this game, 31-20. I think Geno Smith's going to have another great game. And the Seahawks team is a little bit better than people think. I feel like they everybody wrote them off in the beginning of the year, but Geno Smith never wrote back. So they're playing good.
That quote is so hard,
dude. I love it. I'm honestly living by that quote every single day. But yeah, so Uh,
So let's get into my next game because you have two, I have two. Let's get into my next game. We got the LA Rams, who are 3-7, versus the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 8-2. The Rams have been disappointing all year. Injuries to Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford seem to be the final nail in the coffin for this team. The defending Super Bowl champs are not looking too good. It's looking like their season will be over soon. Jalen Ramsey, who has been long considered to be the best corner in football, has struggled all year. And that's just the way it is, especially with corners. He's getting slower, he's getting older, and now the young guys are starting to torch him. Like Chris Olave burned them last week, so that's just the way of the game. Third string quarterback Bryce Perkins will get the start for the Rams, and because of this, the Rams are 15.5-point underdogs in this game. Yikes! So Vegas is predicting the Rams are going to get blown out, which as they should, because the Rams are not a very good team. This is the first time under Sean McVay where the Rams have lost 4 games in a row. The Chiefs, on the other hand, they have had over 400 yards in the last 4 games. With the Rams having the second worst secondary in the NFL, they should easily be able to continue this streak. So Shane, what are just like your quick thoughts on this game so far, like from what you just heard with the Rams and the Chiefs?
I'm gonna quote you on this. What we said about when we went to watch the Chargers versus Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are gonna mess around, fool around. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce's gonna have a little Sunday morning meeting and be like, "Yo, so how badly can we mess with these guys in the first half before we actually start trying?" Because that's what's gonna happen. I believe the Chiefs are gonna absolutely roll over the Rams. Obviously, they still have Aaron Donald, who's still one of the top 3 defensive rushers in the NFL. But on the offensive side for the Rams, they're just not good. They're not going to be able to put up points because the Chiefs' defense is a lot better than the past. And I think this is definitely going to be a complete blowout game.
I agree. The Rams they just don't look good at all, which is kind of sad because like obviously they won the Super Bowl last year. Now they're probably most likely not even going to make the playoffs. So it's just very interesting. So Shane, my last question for you is, with Patrick Mahomes as the clear MVP frontrunner, do you think there's anyone else who's even has a realistic shot at beating him, or do you think it's Patrick Mahomes' award to lose?
The way Josh Allen's been playing, I think it's Patrick Mahomes all the way. Jalen Hurts, he could, but he'd have to really ball out this last second half of the season. But Patrick Mahomes, like you can't say where's his weakness? Honestly, where is Patrick Mahomes and his weakness? He's just crazy. We talked about it when we were watching the game last week. He doesn't he's magic Mahomes. Want to look up his stats real quick. I think he's first in passing yards. I think he's also first in passing touchdowns as well. Yeah, he's first. He's got 28 touchdowns, 3,265 yards. QBR rating of 78.4. That's second, and he's first in passing yards and touchdowns, and he's on pace to. I believe he's on pace for 54. He's on pace for 48 touchdowns and over 5,500 yards for this year if he stays on pace. So I don't think anyone can beat him in the chase for MVP.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's like you said, he's the magician. He's Magic Mahomes. What can he do? He's the best quarterback in football, and that's why. And people really thought the Chiefs would be a lot worse this year. I don't want to say like bad, but like definitely take a steep decline without Tyreek Hill. And they obviously have not missed a beat. I think the Chiefs are going to blow out the Rams 34-14. What about you, Shane?
Yeah, I'm gonna have it a little bit different. I think it's going to be 31-10. Chiefs. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to throw, 3-4 touchdown passes. 300, 400 yards maybe. With Jalen Ramsey struggling a little bit, maybe their secondary can't really stop these wide receivers. So Travis Kelce, obviously, we didn't really talk about him, but he's a stud. He's playing really well. So yeah, it's gonna be a blowout game, boys. It's gonna be a blowout. On to our next game. You got the Saints, who are 4-7, versus the 49ers, who are 6-4. Um, I just want you to think about this for a second because it really opened my eyes. Imagine how hard it is to defend a group that features Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey at running back, right? And then receivers Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayayu, and then a versatile tight end like George Kittle, and then uh, a very good quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo. That's what the Saints have to go up against this week, and it's with a banged up defense. It's not looking good for the Saints. How much do you think the Saints are going to struggle in this game against the 49ers dynamic offense?
Yeah, oh man, I think they're going to struggle a lot because the Saints are just in a very tough spot because they're in a win now mode, like win now, but they don't really can't win because of Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston. So I think they're going to get eviscerated. I think the Saints are in a like I said, their future is in a lot of jeopardy too. Because don't quote me on this, but I don't think they have a first round pick this year. That could be wrong. But they're just in a tough spot, and it's just kind of unfortunate. They don't have any cap. Obviously Sean Payton retired, and Drew Brees and Michael Thomas is injured. Like they're just in a very tough situation. So, not to mention the 49ers are the complete opposite. They're in a very good situation. They're just if Jimmy Garoppolo clicks, they're going to win the Super Bowl. Like let's be honest, that's just how the team is. And he played great last week against the Cardinals. So I think that's enough to warrant him continuing that stretch of playing great, of playing good. So I think they're gonna crush him. What about you?
I agree. I don't think the Saints really have any hope for the rest of the year. Honestly, like you said, with Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston, they're really banged up too. They got a lot of key players out. Um, my second question for you here, Will, is I feel like this has gone a little bit under the radar just because of the Christian McCaffrey trade and all that. Obviously, Trey Lance got hurt earlier this year. Do you think, obviously, everybody in the locker room loves Jimmy Garoppolo, but, the front office, they're questionable with Jimmy G. Do you think Jimmy Garoppolo has people's respect back as a player? Overall, ever since taking over for the injured Trey Lance in the beginning of the year?
Um, it depends who you ask. That's a very subjective question. For me personally, I've always liked Jimmy Garoppolo, so I'm gonna say yes. I'm also a little bit biased. I'm not gonna lie, but has he earned the front office respect? I guess we won't really know because I feel like we people this question gets posed a lot, and then the front office chooses not to stick with Jimmy Garoppolo. So I can't really say, but like, what is he? What's your opinion on that? Shane? Like, what do you think? Has Jimmy Garoppolo earned your respect, or?
I mean, personally, I didn't think I thought the 49ers were going to be better off with Trey Lance this season. They ended up starting Trey Lance, and then they got Christian McCaffrey, which I generally think helped out Jimmy G a lot on the offensive side. I think it took a lot of the heat off of him. He's earned my respect only because he is playing good football. But if the 49ers end up making a deep run to the playoffs, that's what's really going to test them because he's like when he's been in the playoffs, he's not really the same quarterback in my opinion. So that's when I'll definitely have my final answer. But as of right now, he's definitely earned my respect because before I didn't think he was that great of a quarterback.
Right, and I feel like that was the general consensus on him. Like he was a very mediocre quarterback, and do I think he's elite? No, I think he's proven to everyone that he's pretty solid, though. You know what I'm saying? He's proven he's not bad. You know.
No, I agree. Who do you have winning this game here, Will?
This is in my opinion, a no-brainer. I think the Niners are going to win this game comfortably. I think they're going to win 31-20. I just don't see any realistic way of how the Saints win this game. But what about you, Shane?
I agree. I have the similar score. I have 31-17 49ers.
All right, Shane. So let's get into Sunday night football. Then we'll get into Monday night football, and then we'll wrap it all up. Sunday night football between the Green Bay Packers, who are 4-7, versus the Philadelphia Eagles, 9-1. This is a must-win game for the Packers if they want to keep their playoff chances alive. Time is really running out for them. Christian Watson, the rookie from North Dakota State, has really stepped it up the last 2 weeks for Green Bay. However, he has a tough matchup as he'll have either Darius Slay or James Bradbury on him from the Eagles, which is, like I said, just a tough matchup. Every time, this is just a little fun fact, every time the Eagles have started 9-1, they have made or won, 2017, the Super Bowl. So it's just been interesting to see that. Shane, my first question for you is, after losing to the Commanders and only beating the Indianapolis Colts by 1, is it fair to call the Eagles overrated, or do you think that they're just having a little bit of a slump?
I think it's just a slump. Not every team is going to go 17-0 or 16. Not every team's going to go undefeated. Great teams will lose. It's just like the saying, anything can happen on any given Sunday. Even of the worst of teams can, beat anybody in the league. And I think it just proves right now. They're still on top of the NFC East, and they should beat the Packers this week. So I don't think there's really any question or concerns on if they're overrated. They got a great roster, great offense, a good defense, and I think this team's going to be very dangerous come playoff time.
You think so?
I generally do believe so. I do think the Eagles are a true contender to make it to the Super Bowl.
I feel like, I agree that they're a contender, but I really feel like that's a lot of people would say the Eagles are overrated. Can you see where they're coming from, or no? Do you think that's stupid?
I can understand, like, just based off the schedule. I mean, any given person, any basic fan would say, oh, they're overrated because they would just look at their opponent's current record. But when you really go into the details about it, I don't think overrated is the right word. I think they're properly rated. I think they are contenders, and maybe they are Super Bowl contenders. But like you said, come playoff time, it's going to be interesting.
Right. And my other question for you is, according to Aaron Rodgers, he has been dealing with a broken right thumb since week 5. Do you think that explains why Aaron Rodgers has been playing poor, or do you think it's just his general decline as he ages, or do you think his weapons suck, or what do you think about that?
I think it's a mixture of everything. Aaron Rodgers, he was that guy. He was a bad man, as Stephen A. Smith would say. And now he doesn't really trust. Like, how Aaron Rodgers is with his offensive weapons. He's got to trust you to be able to use you, and he doesn't really have a lot of trust in his young core of wide receivers. And then obviously the injured thumb, it's harder to grip the ball with, one of your fingers not, working. And he is older. He's 37, 38. He's taken a lot of hits. He's played a lot of football. So I think it's a mixture of everything. And I think he's a lot closer to retirement than people think. I generally believe he has maybe 1 more year, or maybe 2 more years.
Wow.
At most 2 more years. At most. Just because of, the complications with him in the front office with the Packers, the lack of weapons they currently have on the receiver side. Obviously his age, like I said, he's 37, 38. He's getting very frustrated. It's going to be interesting to see what his decisions are for his career in this offseason. I obviously don't think he's going to retire this year, but I think within the next 3 years he won't be in the NFL. He will be retired.
What do you think's going to win this game, Shane, between the Packers and the Eagles? I got the Eagles winning 26-20. I think it'll be a lot closer than people are saying. I think people are thinking the Eagles are going to blow them out. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to keep the Packers in the game, but I do think at the end the Eagles will win this game. What do you think? Do you think the Eagles win, or do you think the Packers pull off the upset? Or
I think it's going to be a lot closer game. I think it's going to be 21-20 Eagles. I agree with you. I think it's going to be a close game, but with the offense that Aaron Rodgers has, I just don't think he can do it. I don't think he can pull off the upset against the Eagles. All right, on to our last game, the Monday night game. We have the Steelers, who are 3-7, versus the Colts, who are 4-6-1.
Why is this on prime time? Who
Yeah,
said
of
this was a
course.
good idea?
Yeah, weird to me.
Yeah, no, literally.
So for the Colts, winning this one is a must as they hope to keep their playoff hopes from fading away. Of course, the Steelers, 3-7. You know how the AFC is looking right now with a lot of good teams. They've lost 3 out of their last 4, 4 straight on the road. Quarterback Kenny Pickett has struggled really bad with the interceptions, as you know I believe it's his prime time debut. Um, they've struggled to put up points, and with a really good defense, it's kind of stressful, and it's kind of frustrating. My question for you, Q, Will, is they started Kenny Pickett wicked early in the beginning of the year. I believe it was week 4 or 5. I can't recall. But do you think it was too early to start Kenny Pickett?
Yeah, I think so. I don't really understand why they rushed him. Again, especially going against the Jets too. With we all know how good the Jets defense is, and I think Kenny Pickett, he obviously does have bad stats. That's a fact. You can't deny that. But I really feel like it'd be a lot different if he sat at least 2 more weeks. So I really kind of feel like he's been dealt a bad hand. I know Mike Tomlin's a Hall of Fame coach, but that's one mistake I think that I don't want to say will haunt him, but one mistake he made that will definitely be questioned this offseason. But Pickett does flash potential, but we can't see how good he'll be until he develops more, and he didn't really develop, like you said, 3 or 4 games. So I do agree. I think they put him in too early, and I also feel like he only did that to please the fans who pressured him to start in the media too.
No, I definitely agree. Who do you have winning this game here, Will?
This is a close game. Both teams have a defense. Both teams are kind of in a tricky spot on offense. It's like Jonathan Taylor versus Najee Harris. The Colts got a solid team, but they're just Matt Ryan's been playing like crap. He's been all right recently, but Matt Ryan's just not as good as he used to be. So I'm gonna go with the Steelers here in a very defensive, boring game, 17 to 16. What about you, Shane?
I agree. I think it's going to be even less scoring than that. Both offenses are really struggling, especially the Colts. Their offensive line. They're like Jonathan Taylor isn't exceeding. I saw a stat earlier which really surprised me. Jonathan Taylor only has, I believe, like 660 rushing yards, and I believe Jalen Hurts has almost like 200 more rushing yards than Jonathan Taylor. And Jonathan Taylor was the best running back of the league last year, like no doubt. Like it was crazy what he did last year. So I also have the Steelers winning. I have them winning 13-10.
All right, man. So that concludes this week's edition of the Gridiron Talk Podcast. Once again, I apologize for not uploading last week due to the storm. It was just very unfortunate, very annoying. We'll be back, and also for being so late because this is the only time that we could fit it in our schedules. Don't forget to tune in next weekend. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share with all your friends and family that would like football. That like football. I mean, my apologies. Shane, do you have anything else you want to add before we sign off for the week?
No, like everything that Will said. Sorry for not uploading it last week. We're both very busy. Stuff happens, life happens. Thank you for all the support. I know Will definitely appreciates it because I know Will really enjoys doing it. I enjoy doing it. Check out Spotify for my Ryder Rocket podcast. Episode 3 is going to be coming out tomorrow, probably around 5 o'clock ish. So be on the lookout for that. And thank you for supporting me and Will on this podcast. We really enjoy doing it.
Yeah, like I said, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Tune in every Saturday, barring any Mother Nature issues. Thank you, Snow, for messing me up last week. Barring anything like major, every Saturday we'll be here. So like I said, hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. I hope you guys enjoy the first week of December. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for all listening.